They say good artists copy and great artists steal. After several millennia of recorded history, it's inevitable that you're going to be inspired by the history and myths of the world. But how can we incorporate those elements without just copying? Let's talk about that. Before we get into that, though, gaze upon my website. I just launched dcferguson.com, and it's a one-stop shop for all things me. You can read about all of my books, there's exclusive behind-the-scenes videos for all my series, my YouTube channel, sign up for my newsletter, and reach out to me directly. There's even going to be merch in there soon. How cool is that? So let me know in the comments if there's any kind of specific merch you'd like to see. Oh my word, I think I made it through the intro without being weird. Am I sick? History and myth are both this incredible tapestry that's been woven for thousands of years. To some of you, you may feel like you're standing on the shoulders of giants and are too intimidated to borrow, use, or otherwise transform such legendary stories and make them your own. For others, you may worry that integrating anything from our past detracts from your own originality. What do we say to both of these opinions? If we honor and show reverence for our ancient tales, then we continue to inspire future generations, and by extension, you're contributing to that. It's kind of like the concept of this rash of reboots Hollywood is doing at the moment, but not as soulless and disrespectful of the source material. The concept is right, to take these stories and bring them to a modern audience, but the quality of writing is so bad that we all get just slop filled with meaty bits of nostalgia and a gray, tasteless gravy. Lipstick on a pig, people, that's what I'm saying. You can doll it up, but you still don't want to make out with it. Hollywood is the exact example of what not to do with the delicate handling and respect of these tales. Go watch Gods of Egypt and then vow to do the opposite of all that, and you should be fine. So, you've been inspired. You read the tale of Horus and Set, and you want to retell it in a medieval fantasy world. Okay, awesome. I'm going to show you some concepts that I've used in my own writing, and also a few examples of techniques that work well. So often, we as storytellers get so lost in the weeds of our details that we can lose sight of the big picture. If you tell me about this intricate and amazing magic system you've created, the society that developed from it, and the religion and politics of your setting, that's great. When I ask you, but what's your story, and you freeze like a deer in headlights, that's your first clue to take a deep breath, step back, and look at the big picture. In the macro view of, let's say, Star Wars, we have the classic hero's journey we've talked about dozens of times on the channel. But let's zoom out even further. Star Wars is a story about rebellion against the established order. It uses the classic myth tropes of a son rising against his father to bring about a new age. Our most ancient bros were telling us this story. Whether you're referring to Kronos and Zeus, Kumarbi and Teshub, and so on, it's actually one of the most common parts of creation myths. So, I can draw a straight line from Star Wars to the tales of Kronos and Zeus. Is there anything in Star Wars that is particularly Greek in flavor? No. Is there even a direct plot point in the story that was lifted from these myths? Not really. Unless you count the part where Vader ate Princess Leia when she was born so she'd never rise up against him. That was a wild scene. The point is, any good story can be looked at from this macro view, and you'll get a simple tale that rings true to us humans. Don't believe me? Let's just take a random example I pulled out of thin air, American Psycho. On its surface, this is a unique and original story about the excesses of the 1980s, and a descent into madness for the main character Patrick Bateman. But the concept of descent into madness has been done countless times. Look at King Cambyses II of Persian lore. Throughout his reign, he murdered his own brother due to his paranoia, slaughtered the sacred bull in Egypt, killed officials and even family members while laughing, and showed nothing but emotional detachment for his crimes. We could find an ancient book from the time called Persian Psycho for all we know. I kid, but the fact remains, psychotic descents into madness have been done before. Was Patrick Bateman a king? No. He was a Wall Street bro, which is obviously worse. Okay, so how does this macro view translate to your own storytelling? Well, I'm glad you asked. You can most certainly be inspired directly by one of these historical or mythological tales and already be working toward building your story out from there, and more power to you. But what about the rest of us? Oftentimes we create a cool world or a cool character and we have the bones of a story we want to tell. Obviously, being well-read is a huge help here because it gives us more places to draw inspiration from. But this is where we can look for those inspirations to sort of clamp them on to make the backbone of our original work. What does that look like? For me, I started Project Phoenix with a really cool main character, Cora Blake. She's a Native American sorceress in 2082. The concept for the world was magic versus technology. I was heavily inspired by the film series such as James Bond and Mission Impossible. I wanted this feeling of like globe-trotting to strange locales and intrigue and espionage. Those are my bones, right? So, what is the narrative I'm trying to tell? In this first book, I wanted to play out an action and mystery story with this character always on the run, but the antagonist has made a mistake in choosing Cora Blake because she is an animal most dangerous when she's cornered. That's the story of Achilles. After everything he loves is taken from him, he hides away until his enemies are at his front door, and that's when he becomes a storm of vengeance. The idea of a hero that is so powerful because they have nothing left to lose is again ancient. So we take this concept and we attach it to the backbone of the story. Now what? Well, we take that thick notebook full of world building that we've been doing, and we start grafting our pieces onto it. Who's the antagonist? A dragon named Lucius. How does he have all this power to bring against her? Well, he's the CEO of the most powerful cybernetics company on the planet. Pretty soon, you're answering all these questions and building out your narrative, and all your cool original stuff starts to take center stage. We bury those inspirations upon layers and layers of new concepts, sure, but the bones are always there. The inspiration and what makes that a universal truth doesn't vanish, it's tucked away. And that's why we put up with so many origin stories at the beginning of the MCU. They're telling the same backbone over and over to explain how it created this specific hero with this specific personality and power. Now, myth and message is one thing, but history is a little different. Whether you're writing alternative history fiction or trying to incorporate real events into your plot, the one thing I'd warn is to use an abundance of research. Myth is great because it can be played with and tinkered with all you like. Just look at Percy Jackson. You can rewrite the entire Greek pantheon in the modern age and take huge liberties and come off with a series that is wildly successful and popular. History doesn't like being played with like that unless you're giving that history its due respect. What do I mean? Well, you're not exactly going to write a book reframing Pearl Harbor as brave Japanese pilots risking everything to stop the alien threat in Hawaii without pissing off basically everyone that even hears the plot of it. There are only so many liberties you can take with history, bending but never breaking the historical record. Let's look at the experts in the 90s TV show Quantum Leap, which is by far one of the greatest dramas ever on television for me. Like, it shares a top 5 with Breaking Bad. On a weekly basis, the show threw time traveler Sam Beckett not only into the past, but into the body of the person living in that era. His mission was always the same: set right what once went wrong. By its very nature, this show is going to alter events in history. But every single episode, Sam had to juggle the differences in attitude, culture, and beliefs for the person and the time period he was in. The writers gave so much respect to these different eras, genders, cultures, and personal experiences that it was almost akin to the way Star Trek visited alien worlds. The story you tell of a man trying to put his life back together after getting out of jail in the 1980s is a very different story than you tell as a black woman in the South in the 1960s. So, respect for those times and places, the era and customs, even the language, has to be respected. This is a much stricter juggling act. Go into any reading group and do a search for modern language, and your screen is going to fill up with complaints from readers about the use of modern slang in basically any genre that has a historical bent. Nothing kills suspension of disbelief like a Victorian woman saying, "This umbrella slaps." How do we show this respect? Again, research goes a long way. You're not catering to the expert in that particular era. That's crazy. That would be like writing a space opera for Neil deGrasse Tyson and being surprised when he comes back with notes. We're writing this for the average reader that will enjoy an interesting take on the history they know. So we want to make sure it feels authentic for them. Give them the sights and sounds, the way the world worked, the way they spoke. Put them in the era and then let them soak in it like a bath. Then you can take your tweaks and left turns and the audience will go with you. One thing I purposely avoid when doing alternative history is using anything iconic. In the Incursion trilogy, main characters Cole Jensen and Gemma Walker are bouncing around to a different time period literally every chapter. If they made a stop in the 1980s, am I immediately going to have someone dancing to Michael Jackson on the street while wearing Dayglow clothing? No, that's all kinds of ham-fisted and we don't need it. Growing up in the 80s and living now, you know what's different? The architecture's more bland, the color palette's like shades of gray and brown, and every person has their face in a tiny TV sitting in the palm of their hand. That's what's different. You don't need to have a gangster doing the jitterbug with a short-haired woman to make people feel like they're in the 1920s. So, avoid being iconic. I hope understanding all of this has made it so that you too can incorporate myth, legend, and history into your storytelling without fear. Storytelling is a lot like Taco Bell. If you find a new way to come up with the combination of the same 13 ingredients, congratulations, you just landed on the menu. So, get out there and write the crunchiest grande chalupa you can. I nerd out for a good documentary, and the best ones make me want to find new ways to tell the lessons of those stories. If you're ever feeling uninspired, don't ever be afraid to crack a history book for your next big thing. Look what it did for George R.R. Martin. Don't forget to check out my new website. The link is in the description below. You'll also find a link to my newsletter in the comments where you can get a free book, read about all my latest projects, and find other indie authors for your next great read. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear about new videos, and as always, have fun and get crafting.